Hi friends, I am doing this video about study designs in epidemiology. Epidemiology is the study of distribution and determinants of disease and application of this study for controlling a disease. Design is a plan or sketch to do an activity. Study designs are a set of methods used in research to collect data based on a research question. Study design directs how a study is to be conducted. So, the research question is the first step of a research process, followed by study design and then collection of data, then analysis of data and followed by interpretation of results. The study designs can be broadly classified into observational studies and experimental studies. Under observational studies come descriptive studies and analytical studies. Under experimental studies comes randomized control trial, field trial and community trial. Now, let us differentiate between observational studies and experimental studies. In observational study, we are observing the study population without doing any intervention. The investigator allows to follow the natural course of events. So, for example, in a supermarket, when we are selecting the items, the staff observes us doing the procedure and measures how much items we are taking and all, but they never intervene. In experimental studies, there is direct control of the investigator. There will be an experimental group who receives the intervention and there is a control group who does not receive the intervention, and the outcomes of the both groups are compared. Now, under observational study comes the descriptive study. Here we are observing the population and describing the characteristics, and by describing it we are generating the hypothesis. So the key word is describe. Descriptive studies are further classified into case reports, case series, cross-sectional studies, longitudinal studies and ecologic studies. Coming to the case reports. It is a detailed presentation of a single case, which can be new or unfamiliar cases, rare cases. The article is an example of a case report study design. The title is An Interesting Case Report of Hematohydrosis. What is hematohydrosis? It is blood in sweat. So it is a rare case. Case series. Here we are studying about a larger group of patients with a particular disease, more than 10. There is no comparison group, and case series and case reports are a way for clinicians or physicians to know similar presentation of disease in their area by reading these reports. Next one is cross-sectional studies. In this study, we are observing the population at a single point of time, like a snapshot in camera. The study units are individuals. Both the exposure and outcome has occurred at that single point of time. And we are observing the presence of one or more exposures or one or more outcomes. We are looking at a single point of time. So we do not know whether this disease has occurred at that time or before that. So we are looking the prevalent cases. So hence this is also known as prevalence studies. And also we cannot know whether the exposure occurred before the outcome or the outcome occurred before the exposure. That sequence, temporal sequence, cannot be determined in cross-sectional study. Next one is longitudinal studies. Here observation of same population group at different point of time or over a prolonged period. The study units are individuals. As we are observing for a prolonged period, the change over time can be tracked. In this study, we can observe the relation between exposure and outcome. We can also observe the outcome of exposure over different time intervals. Ecologic studies, also known as correlational studies. The study unit is population. In this study, the population with high rates of disease are related to population with high rates of exposure. The disadvantage of this study is ecologic fallacy. The relation of exposure and outcome at the group level need not hold true for the relation of exposure and outcome at the individual level. In the figure given, you can see the IQ levels of 4 students. When we see the average IQ of the whole class, it is very high, but the individual IQ is not high for all. This is ecologic fallacy. Now coming to analytical study design, which is a type of observational study design. Here we are testing the hypothesis. An example of hypothesis is cigarette smoking causes lung cancer. We are testing whether cigarette smoking and lung cancer is having any relation using appropriate statistical tests. Whereas descriptive study, they are generating hypothesis. They are describing the population, the distribution and characteristics of the population, exposure, outcome, like that. In analytical study, the pattern of exposure and outcome is measured, and comparison group is always present to refute an inference. So the key word in analytical study is compare. The different study designs in analytical study are cross-sectional studies, case control studies, and cohort studies. We have already seen descriptive cross-sectional study. Now, analytical cross-sectional study, there also we are observing and describing the population, exposure and outcome. And in analytical study, we are comparing the outcome between the exposed and unexposed. So first we are gathering the data on exposure and disease from a defined population, and in them we are looking for exposed with disease, exposed without disease, not exposed with disease, and not exposed without disease. Next one is case control studies, also known as retrospective studies. The study begins by picking up the cases and controls. So here the outcome as well as the exposure have occurred before the start of the study, hence called retrospective study. So we start the study with cases and controls. Cases means those with disease or those with outcome. Controls means those without outcome. And they are followed in the backward direction to get the exposed and unexposed in the cases and exposed and unexposed in the controls. It is a backward looking study, that is from outcome to exposure or effect to cause. The next study design is cohort studies. Here we are starting the study before the outcome has occurred. We start with the exposed and unexposed group who are not having any outcome, and they are followed over a period of time to look for the outcome. It is a forward looking study, that is starts from the exposure till the outcome, from cause to the effect. Randomized control trial or RCT is an experimental study. Till now we had dealt with observational study coming under descriptive and analytical study. You know what is the heart of RCT? Randomization, which is the special feature of RCT. From the study population, we are grouping them into experimental group and control group. So we cannot group them according to our wish. We are randomizing the study population. The investigator is randomizing and he does not know whom he has grouped into control group and whom he has grouped into experimental group. And the intervention is given to the experimental group and the placebo is given to the control group. That also the investigator and the participant does not know. This procedure is known as blinding. The investigator and the participant does not know whom he has chosen under experimental group and control group. And after that, they are followed up to know the outcome of intervention in both the groups. With this, we come to the end of study designs in epidemiology. the classification of epidemiological study designs is very important. And when we hear a scenario, it is not always true that a particular scenario goes with a particular study design. Multiple study designs can be used for a same title. I'll explain it through an example. Cigarette smoking causes lung cancer. So which is the most appropriate study design for this scenario? The most appropriate is RCT, Randomized Control Trial, definitely, because it is the study design with the highest level of evidence. Can't we do cross-sectional study? Yes, we can do descriptive cross-sectional study. We can know about the percentage of lung cancer in smokers. Then we can know percentage of smokers. We can know the age group and other characteristics. Now suppose we are choosing case control study. So how will we begin? We begin with the outcome, that is the lung cancer, those with lung cancer and those without lung cancer, and we are following backward and we look those lung cancer patient having smoking and those without smoking, and those without lung cancer with smoking and not smoking, like that. And can't we do cohort study? Yes, we can do cohort study. So here we will begin with exposure. So smokers and non-smokers, they will be followed up for in their lives to see who develops lung cancer and who does not. Non-smokers also will be followed up to see who develops cancer and who does not develop lung cancer. So different study designs can be used. It depends upon our feasibility. Suppose we are doing cohort design and all, we have to follow for long time. And it will be very expensive. For rare outcome, we have to use case control study, because we are beginning the case control study with outcome, with the deceased and non-deceased. And for rare exposure, we have to use cohort study, because we are starting the cohort study with exposed and unexposed. So it will be easy to get the exposed persons. Thank you. If you like the video, please subscribe.